This is episode 11 of the FAB podcast on Wisp Sports Radio.
Excuse me.
The FAB podcast is the weekly show brought to you by Females in Athletic Business for women in the sports business, where we believe that women in sport deserve equal coverage. Welcome to this week's episode. My name is Kristin Ray, and I'm the founder of Females in Athletic Business. Today we are speaking with Jerica Williams, president of AllJace LLC, a sports consultancy for athletes and brands and nonprofits, as well as the chief marketing officer for Q4 Sports. She's a former student athlete and San Diego's Businesswoman of the Year from 2017. Welcome, Jerica.
Hi, how are you?
We're good. Thanks so much for being here today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so start out by telling us a little bit about why you started your company, AllJace LLC, and also the work you do at what I think is a newer company called Q4 Sport.
Yeah. So why I started Jace, I have always had a passion for sports and community. And I kind of organically just fell into all of the stuff that happens behind the scenes. So from public relations to marketing to event planning, to helping athletes increase their visibility through community activations. That was something that I fell into when I was in high school and college. And at the time, I graduated college in 2010. Well, I stopped playing basketball in 2010. And at the time, public relations and that wasn't a major in school. So I didn't even know that that was a thing. And so when I kind of got introduced to it post-playing career, I was like, hey, I really like this field. I really like this industry. So I really put on this public relations hat, started off as a publicist, worked with athletes. And that was very organic because of my affiliation, just being an athlete, being a former athlete. I had a lot of connections with athletes and I knew how to speak their language. I knew what they needed. I knew what they wanted. And it was an industry that I took head on and kind of learned on the fly. So it wasn't anything that I went to school for, but I think I just had a knack for helping people, increase their visibility in the public, but also fine tuning what their dreams and what their goals are and helping them bring that into fruition. So with that, I was able to make it into a business. It wasn't something that I could research online and say, hey, I want a job in this. There really wasn't anything that embodied all of those things that I was doing for those athletes and entertainers specifically. So I was working corporate America and, I just said one day like, hey, if I put the time that I'm spending working at a 9-to-5, I can definitely make this much money or, be at minimum more fulfilled,
right.
Feel more purposeful in what I'm doing for my career if I just jump head in. And so I was able to do that and I haven't worked for anybody since. And so I think that that's where the entrepreneurial spirit really came into fruition when that happened.
So when you didn't find a hole in the industry for yourself, you tried some other things and you came back to it and you decided to make yourself a hole in it.
Exactly.
That's awesome. So introduce us really quick to Q4 Sports as well.
Right. So Q4 Sports is an innovative athletic shoe, a performance shoe. We just launched our basketball inline collection last year. We are currently on 3 NBA players. We have a number of NBA draft prospects and younger grassroots basketball players wearing the shoe. And so it's really taking to market. People are starting to see this disruptive model penetrate the shoe market. And it's really an exciting time to be a part of a new company, especially seeing as to me, it involves everything that I've worked up to this point. So from the marketing standpoint, the PR standpoint, the basketball standpoint, everything, connecting people, connecting athletes, putting together campaigns, event planning. I mean, it really does embody everything that I've done. And so it's just a really good time to be a part of a new company.
So, Jerica, we've asked you to be with us today to put on your career consultant hat. You mentioned wanting to help former athletes, other women, kind of turn their love for sports, their dreams into a career. And so we have you here today really to talk about some of the challenges, stumbling blocks, mistakes that women make, whether it's starting their career, in the middle of their career. And I think this is an important topic because we should be learning from each other's mistakes, women in sports, and not just mistakes, but challenges, downfalls. And in order to really help each other get farther in this business, because sometimes it's only each other that are, helping other women, I think we need to make sure we're capitalizing on the opportunities to, learn from what hasn't worked or what really has worked for other women. So let's start with kind of how the interview process and in the hiring process, how that they sometimes go wrong for women, or the challenges that you've seen when you've been working with women early on in their careers.
That's a really good question. So when you say interview process, are you specifically referring to when I go into interview? Are we talking specifically in the field that I'm in?
Well, when you've worked with other women, trying to coach them, I guess, in their careers, what have you, either from working with them, heard them say about their interview process? Maybe that you're like, oh gosh, like, red flag, mistake number one. This is why it hasn't worked for you. That kind of stuff.
Oh, I hear you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that, and this could be, applied across the board, I think, for men and women. But I think for us, that's a really good question. I think I have to put on a transparency hat here. I think that sometimes we feel like we have to over assert ourselves. Like we have to come off as like, we know
yes,
a lot, like that we almost have to overcompensate for the fact that we are women, because let's just, call a spade a spade. If we're in a room full of men, out of the gate, we have to essentially, do more to make our voice heard. And what I've learned, I think that's a stigma. And I think that, I think our society is changing, first of all. But I also think that when we try to over assert ourselves, it ends up backfiring, because the people who value knowledge understand how valuable women are to any team. And so any team that I've been on, I've heard them say, like, we need a woman's voice. We need a woman in a leadership role because of Jerica or this other woman on our team. Our boat is able to move, and it's able to move faster, and it's able to move more efficiently. And so I think that we are really valuable. And I think that we can, in just having that, we don't have to over assert ourselves. We don't have to interrupt anybody where they're talking, or we don't have to, toot our own horn, if you will. I think that it really goes without saying when when you have the knowledge and expertise. I think that being a woman plays more to your favor than what we've been accustomed to.
I think that's an important thing to say, because I think maybe the young women coming out of college right now, I feel like I graduated just a year before you. So I think we might be in the same boat in terms of the culture that we came out of at that time. But it seems to me like the younger girls are maybe feeling it a little less than we did, which is a really positive thing. And you mentioned how the industry is changing. And so I think that's a really positive thing. And so maybe they need to think about taking less of that chip on our shoulder, if you will, in with them when it comes to interviewing or their first couple weeks on a new job. Because I think even still maybe we need to at some point have an all generations podcast where we hear from women of all generations. But the young women that work for me,
that would be great,
still feel that bias definitely in social situations. They still feel like they have to prove themselves, whether it be, at the bar watching a game, if they're with guys, or, people are really shocked that they want to do what they want to do because they're not used to women in these roles. And so it seems like maybe the outside world is still a little less ready for us than the work industry itself. And so maybe they need to figure out how to take that that chip on their shoulder and not take it into an interview, because what you're saying is it doesn't overcompensating and really trying to prove yourself doesn't come off as knowledgeable. It comes off as maybe trying too hard or maybe overly aggressive. Aggressive and overly assertive is definitely something that we've heard over and over isn't right or wrong, isn't always accepted or liked in a woman, if you will. And so
it's just not well received. And just to piggyback on that, I don't think that that's our natural state anyway. Like I don't feel like women are, so I'm a mother as well. And when I try to be aggressive with my son, it's outside of my natural state, and so I find myself really doing things that aren't me. And so I feel out of alignment, and I think that we're using the word aggressive, like that can be used in other ways. Like, let's not deter from, if you're a woman in business and you're at an executive level, especially, you have to have some sort of strong, aggressive nature about you in order to be a good leader, without it. So maybe, just my lack of English vocabulary isn't,
too many synonyms.
I don't have
we need more synonyms
too many other
for
words
those
to describe it. Yeah, exactly. For those words. But so we definitely have to be, strong and tough and be good leaders. But I think that I think my point is, being a woman is a good thing and it's an asset. It's not a liability, being kind and gentle and leading.
And so you're seeing people in our industry really coming to appreciate that and really coming to almost seek that out. Is that becoming your experience when you're working with people?
Absolutely. Because there's enough testosterone to go around the world 3 times. And so when you bring a woman in, so I don't work, like I have women who are on my team, but in my executive roles, I'm the only woman on all of my teams. So I have women
Which I think a lot of women find is their experience when they're in an executive role or a leadership role within the sports industry. They're the only one.
Right, exactly. So I'm the only one, but my opinion is very valued. It is held at a super high value, and super high regard.
For that reason, because you're the only one.
Because I'm the only woman. And so that's what I don't want to lose, the women coming up after us, or even people who are older than us, or who are in sports or whatever industry that you're in, to not lose sight of how valuable your voice is as a woman, period.
Well, that's a really good point. And I'm loving this conversation already. So using both your work experience and your time working with other women, and coaching them and preparing them for the industry, once these women are in new jobs and are in these, hopefully a leadership position, but sometimes maybe a newer entry-level position, what have you seen or heard some women do in the social culture at work that, has set them back or deterred their progress a little? Because I feel like in the same way that you would in an interview try to really prove yourself, it'd be really easy for us to get into a new job and really try to demonstrate what we know, where we came from. So I can see that same mistake being made kind of on a daily basis, trying to prove ourselves too much. But other than that, what other things have you seen or come across, or maybe even mistakes you've made yourself in the industry?
Right.
Kind of early on, once you're kind of in the social culture of your job.
Yeah. No, really good question. Like I said, full transparency, crossing the business and personal lines, especially in a male dominated, and I think it's something that every woman who's in this industry knows. We just don't talk about it. And I think that we need to talk about it more.
Oh yeah, it is. It's a black ops topic. You don't talk about it, because if you do talk about it, then people are thinking, oh, like who has she gone out with, or why is she bringing this up?
And it doesn't even have to go that.
Yeah, I think it's such an interesting topic.
And we can go there. We can go with dating, or, you know, being intimate with someone who you work with, right? Like, or something like that. Like, we can cross those lines, or we could leave it on just having to maneuver through flirting when men come to you and are charismatic or whatever, and you have to be charismatic because this is your job. But then you get asked out, and I'm jumping around, and hopefully I'll bring it back, but you get asked out on dates because you're the woman in the room. And now, not only are you the woman in the room, you're a woman who's extremely smart and intelligent and ambitious and a leader and an executive, and you're doing great things. And so, oh my gosh, I'm more attracted to her. So of course I want to ask her on a date, but I work with her. So we have to, as women, one, we have to be able to draw the line. So I don't want to say that it's necessarily a mistake, because you see people date in the same industries all the time. No one judges, you know, Rihanna for dating Drake. They're in the same industry. They get it. They understand it. But for some reason in sports, there's a stigma there. It's like, if I work with an athlete, I have to be, and I don't know how candid we can be on this podcast, but for sure she slept with him then if she's working with him, you know, like, you know, I have to be able to maneuver through those, but I also have to be able to, when men do approach me, because they do, I have to be able to say no. I have to be able to say why. I have to be able to say no multiple times. I have to be able to stand my ground. I have to be able to not flirt. I have to be able to, if I am attracted to somebody, which happens because we're in the same industry, I have to be able to put that stuff to the side and do my job. I have to be able to do my job.
And you have to be able to do all of that without making him feel emasculated, making him feel like you've insulted him, making you feel like you've taken him down a notch. God forbid it be in front of someone else, because then all of a sudden you've also embarrassed him. So I think there's so much within social culture at work that women have to be extra careful about. And even if we're not going that deep, when you first mentioned it, what I thought of in some of my experiences is just battling the feeling of missing out or being left out of social things, whether it be, you know, somebody's kid's birthday party that the whole office is invited to, but somehow you were forgotten about.
Right.
Or, you know, maybe it's just drinks, or it's golf, and they assume because you're a chick that you either don't know how to golf, you don't like golfing, or you're bad at golf. Right. And so little things like that, where it's not even, there's so many different levels of social culture that women have to, you know, delve into and really deal with on different levels than I think men ever even think about, especially in this industry. Because if you get left out for a minute, you could lose an opportunity. Being outside the realm of information in a sports office can be the difference between you going on a trip or not going on a trip, being offered an opportunity or not being offered an opportunity, solely because you missed a piece of information because you weren't at something, whether you were invited or maybe you have kids and so you weren't able to go to that event because you're a single mom and that's you have to go home. And, you know, so I mean, the social, we could go on and on about that, about the social stuff.
Or maybe you're creating a bond. Like interacting with people outside of work allows you to form a friendship or a bond that can help elevate the business sometimes. You know, like take the relationship part out of it. But if you go like out for drinks, right, and you're not there, but they're engaging in and creating this camaraderie with one another where you're not included. So then when they come back to the office, now all of a sudden they have this brotherhood, or what, for lack of a better word, this camaraderie amongst each other that you're now not in.
That you weren't involved in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's a dangerous place to be.
So yeah, for sure. We can definitely, we can stay on that topic for a long time.
Oh, I know. Talk a little bit about some of the personality traits which have been challenging for some women or for women that you've worked with. And then let's talk about some really positive ones that either women could try to adopt in themselves or really bring out if they already have in terms of being successful. So what are some maybe challenging personality traits, and what are some really positive ones that you've seen get women some, really far?
Yeah. I think a challenging personality trait is, I think what I said earlier, someone who, well, there's a couple that come to mind. I think entitled,
Yep.
entitlement is one. I think, similarly, when there's a chip on your shoulder, and I think that there has to be, when you have to elude a level of confidence in order to be successful in any industry. But I think that that's something, like you don't want to be cocky, I think a mistake, and I don't know if this is a personality trait more so as it's just a thing. Social media is heavy this day and age. And I think that when women lead with their bodies in images, even if, they could be a super, smart, knowledgeable individual who contributes heavily to business. But if they, have images that lead with their body, it takes away from what they bring to the table, really. And so I think that that's something.
I think that's something maybe to stress even more, Jerica, when a lot of our listeners, I think, are young women either in college or maybe in their first job, not to forget about it. So easy. I work with young women every day, and I am not the social media guru. They handle most of my social media questions, and I am not good at it. But I think, honestly, my next career step, should I need one? Should I want one?
Right.
It almost might be kind of refreshing to an employer to not have to go check on my Instagram and see how racy my pictures are because I don't have an Instagram. But I feel like that's something that's really important, is to make sure that what you're presenting before you meet someone or even after you meet someone is the same as what you're presenting in person.
Right.
Because you don't need them judging you for anything other than what you bring to the table.
Exactly.
But for better or for worse. And so that, while maybe that's not quite a personality trait like you said, I think it is something to be thought of and to be taken really serious when we're talking about this industry specifically, and really any male-dominated industry, because it would be so easy for on your first or second day for someone to not take you seriously, look you up and take you even less seriously.
Right.
And give them, some sort of ammunition. So let your words, let your work be your reputation and nothing else.
Exactly.
I think that was a really important part to talk about. So what are some really positive personality traits that you see in the most successful women?
Oh, man, an unmatched work ethic. The people who have...
We hear that time and time again.
Yeah, the people who are just so dedicated to their craft, and really not doing it for any other reason other than it brings them life. They're very purposeful and intentional about perfecting their craft and elevating themselves in business. They do when their head is down and they're really focused, they don't make many mistakes. Like women especially, they just don't make many mistakes. You don't see them go too far off the Richter when they're focused and they're, and not just like, because people can be ambitious about a whole bunch of things. But when they're, focused and ambitious about specific tasks and goals, you really start to see them thrive, and you start to see them thrive really quickly. And I think that that's not on accident, So I think that that's one for sure.
You mentioned that you're a mom. Tell me how young are your kids?
I have a son, and he's 6.5.
6. Okay. So I'm about halfway through my first pregnancy, and I'm sure we have...
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. And I'm sure we have a lot of young women who are listening who are thinking, gosh, this does not apply to me.
Right.
But I encourage you to keep listening and open your ears, because maybe someday it will.
Yeah.
But also, I'm sure some of our listeners have already battled this, and it sounds like you're battling it right now. Talk to me about how you, and I hate the term work-life balance because it makes you feel like maybe there's a perfect balance that you are going to attain at some point, and it sounds like that is unrealistic when I talk to moms. But help me understand how you can manage and juggle the work ethic that it takes to be as successful as you are, but also be a mom? Because I'm interested in that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Especially pregnancy. Oh my goodness. Takes me back to a time. Well, one, it's so funny when people ask me that, I say it's kind of impossible to completely balance, right? Like, yeah, I do. Like you make it work and you find a balance, but being a mother is a full-time job. My son is on my mind every second of the day, every single second of the day. And what I find to give you a more practical, I had to just throw that one out there, but to give you a more practical answer, I have to shut off at some time. So for me, and just being an entrepreneur, my phone is always by me. It's accessible, but over the years, I have learned to detach. And that doesn't necessarily mean, go on do not disturb or leave my phone at home. It doesn't necessarily mean like that, but I'm not solely coded and embedded into my work like I am in the day when my son is at school. And so when my son comes home, I would say around 4:30 or 5, like I don't take conference calls after a certain time of the day. And now, like, I'm not available. Now you can email me, and I'll get to it when I get to it, or maybe, a text or phone call from, one of my colleagues or something. Sure. Yeah, I'm available, but I'm not working per se after that time, because that is the time my son is home or we're in after school activities from, whatever, 3 or 4 to 8:30 in the evening when he goes to sleep. And then we wake up, we do our breakfast thing, and then he goes to school. I don't get to see him a lot already. And so it's important for me to know that, hey, one, he comes first. He comes first. And if I'm not present for my child, then I'm not going to be, one, the best mother I can be. Simultaneously, I'm not going to be the best version of myself. I'm not going to be the best woman that I know how to be if I'm not present for my son. And I have that, the contrast to offer, because I did it the other way around, where, you love your child unconditionally, of course, but it's easy to fall into that lifestyle of work is everything. And I did that for a couple years. And, my son, we struggled, we had some struggling times when I did that. I was very stressed out. I was working, I will say, like, way too hard. I wasn't working smart. I was just putting in an immense number of hours that if I had a better balance and a better handle on my personal and business, I could have been way more efficient. And so now I'm like, okay, Jerica, nothing is that serious. Nothing is that serious. Certain things can wait. And when I'm in like an event mode or something like that, sure, probably more around the clock, but it is not every day. It is not day to day.
So would you say that prioritizing is a big thing? And what I mean by that is, I feel like so many women I talk to feel like the more time they spend at home with their phones, off or really involved with their kids, these are the moments that they might miss an opportunity to go on one of these social meetings that we talked about, or miss an email that somebody else, felt like they could answer at 7 p.m. because maybe their wives were taking care of their kids. So is it something where watch your phone, watch the emails that are coming in, and if there's one that absolutely you feel like you have to take, that's an opportunity? Or do you really, really just shut down at a certain point in your night or your week?
Right. And one would venture to say, what are we looking at as these, huge opportunities? If it's something that's, so if my son goes to sleep at 8:30, yeah, I can check my emails at 9, so if there was some crazy opportunity, like maybe it was, the NBA called me and it's like, Jerica, do you want to go to Dubai in 2 hours? I couldn't do that anyway, because I would have to coordinate my child. So it's like, really, what's the opportunity? So for me, it's like, if the opportunity is for me, I'm not going to miss it. I'm not going to miss it, because whoever's presenting the opportunity to me wants it for me. And I'm not telling them to wait 2 weeks. I'm not telling them to wait 24 hours. You know what I mean? We're talking about a matter of...
So just have confidence. It sounds like have confidence that...
Yeah, like it's not the end of the world. And if someone else, you know, comes in and quote unquote takes an opportunity, good for you. Good for you. There will be others. There will be more. But also, I don't want to miss bedtime with my kid. I can't, like, that, to me, that precedes it all, because that's the stuff that, I mean, we're talking about, maybe you're talking about signing a contract or something, or a deadline or something like that. But these moments with my son, these are the ones that I'm going to hang on to, that are going to last me, that are going to take me through my life, that he's going to remember. I'm telling you, 2 weeks from now or next year, you're not going to remember what that email was about. You're not going to remember, but you're going to remember all these hours that you spent with your son. Like, you're going to remember those. And so for me, yes, it is about prioritizing, but it's also about being intentional and purposeful, and just really knowing, like, if you're on top of your stuff, opportunities will continue to come to the point where, honestly, you're going to say no most of the time, because that's how many will start to come in, you know?
Well, it sounds like to me, something I'm hearing without you actually saying, something I'm thinking about is, make sure, because Jerica did mention that our industry is changing and is coming to a point where they're appreciating women, our views, what we have to offer the sports industry, that more and more positions within more and more organizations working for more and more people are going to be open to having women in them, to understanding what that means and what comes with that. And those are the jobs that will be the best jobs for women who have more to balance and more to juggle. And so finding something like that, that is understanding and is willing to work with your lifestyle is step one. And step two is just putting the right things in the right order, and, and really hopefully everybody who's listened to this today has learned a little bit of something. I feel like we've had a little bit of something for every woman who's in every spot in her career in the sports industry. And so that really makes me excited. And Jerica, I want to thank you before we let you go. Tell our listeners where they can get more information about you, about your consulting company, and about Q4.
So my website is alljace.com, ALLJACE.com. And my social media handles are, I'm not as active on my social media handles, but they're at AllJace. Same thing, ALLJACE. And you can reach me via email through my website. And I'm always available to talk. People like to stray away from, I'm away from those pick my brains. I welcome those, because I feel like, my biggest impact is going to be on the people that I influence after me. And so my door, for lack of a better word, my door is always open.
Well, that's wonderful to hear, because not everybody is willing to put themselves out there to help others. So I really appreciate that. I appreciate your time. And for more conversations from the world of women's sport, visit wispsports.com, where you'll find more than 800 podcast episodes, plus blogs, videos, and articles. Wisp Sports Radio is the world's largest podcast network for women's sport, with 30 shows and 20 hosts around the world. Subscribe for free on your favorite podcast app. And to follow Females in Athletic Business, this podcast, or Wisp Sports, use @FAB_Sports.org or @WispSports on social media. The FAB podcast is a co-production of Females in Athletic Business and Wisp Sports. Check out Females in Athletic Business at www.fabsportsorg.com. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode of the FAB podcast, when we sit down with Dr. Janice Hilliard, former VP of Player Development for the NBA. We'll be chatting with her about the differences and similarities of working in pro versus college athletics. Thanks again for listening and supporting women in sport everywhere.